As the presiding officer knows, I come from the state of Delaware, and Delaware is noted for a number of things. One of the things that we're noted for is before anybody else, any other state ratified the Constitution, we did. And for one whole week, Delaware was the entire United States of America. And we opened it up, and we let in Maryland and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, ultimately Iowa and other states. And I think it's turned out pretty well most days. But we're the first to ratify the Constitution. Just up the road from us, my family and I live in northern Delaware, and just up the road from us is Philadelphia. And that's where that Constitution was first debated. And folks from throughout the 13 colonies came and argued for or against different provisions of how we should set up the structure of our government. One of the hardest provisions that they argued on and debated was whether or not there should be a legislative branch at all. And if there should it just be like unicameral, just one entity, one body within that legislative branch? And or should there be two? Should the number of votes and the power that states have be in accordance with the size of their state, how many people they have? Or how are we going to balance things out? And some of this worked out called the Connecticut Compromise. It said that every state will have a Senate, 2 senators, same number. And they will be part of the United States Senate. And the House of Representatives would be comprised of folks so that the more people who lived in a state, they have more representatives. And that was the Connecticut Compromise. It was worked out, maybe not a perfect compromise in the eyes of some, but it enabled them to move forward. And most people think it's fair and reasonable. Another really tough issue that they wrestled with those days was with respect to the third branch of government. We have the executive, we have the legislative, we have the judicial branch. And the question was, what are these judges going to do, these federal judges going to do? How are they going to be appointed? Who's going to pick them? And is it the chief executive officer? Should the president be able to name by himself or herself who the judges are going to be, federal judges, Supreme Court justices? Should it be left up to the Senate? Should it be left up to the House of Representatives? Should it be a joint effort by the House and Senate? Should there be some role for the president, the chief executive to play? Just how should it work out? And time and time again, they voted on this issue in the Constitutional Convention up in Philadelphia. Finally, after a number of votes that were just not successful, they couldn't come to a successful conclusion. They actually called out for clergy to come in, Mr. President, and actually call on divine intervention to help them get over this issue of how to pick judges, how to select the federal judges. And I don't know if it was divine intervention that led them to this one or not, but in the end of the day, the deal was this. It said, the president shall nominate, not appoint, not name, but shall nominate folks to serve as federal judges, including the Supreme Court. And that the Congress, the Senate rather, would have the opportunity to provide advice and consent to the president. We've argued a lot over the years what advice and consent should be, but it makes very clear the president has a job to do with respect to the naming of judges. And I believe we have a job to do as well. About 300 yards from the Golden Fleece Tavern, where the Constitution was first ratified on December 7, 1787 in Delaware, about 300 yards from there, I, with my hand on the Bible, raised my other hand and took an oath to defend the Constitution as governor of Delaware. And I never thought, Mr. President, very much about what kind of qualities I'd look for in a judge. And my Republican opponent, a wonderful guy named B. Gary Scott in 1992, the standard bearer for the Republican Party in the governor's race, he and I had 35 joint appearances together, debates and all kinds of forums. Nobody ever asked in all those forums, well, what qualities would you look for in the people you'd nominate to be a Supreme Court justice for the state of Delaware, or a member of the Court of Chancery, which is a court that has national, international role to play. The Superior Court, which also hears not just Delaware cases, but national cases as well. Nobody ever asked me, what would you consider? As it turns out, that was a really important part of my job, given the relevance and the importance of those courts. And I'm proud to say that Delaware judiciary is one of the highest regarded, maybe the highest regarded of any state judiciaries that we have. We have a very unusual system, Mr. President, where there has to be an equal balance between Democrats and Republicans on the judiciary. It's not a spoil system. If there's one more Republican than a Democrat and there's a vacancy, you got to name a Democrat. And that's the way systems work. When I was governor, we had a person who had been Chancellor of the Court of Chancery, which is high honor, decided he was going to leave, and so we had a vacancy to fill. I named a Republican. And in that case, I actually had the flexibility to name a Democrat or Republican. I named a Republican. I wanted to name the best person that I thought was interested in serving. My criteria that I used as Mr. President in nominating people to serve on the judiciary, on the bench in Delaware, was I wanted to name people really smart. I wanted to nominate folks. I always sought to nominate people who knew the law. I sought to nominate people, and the presiding officer will appreciate this, who embraced the golden rule. They treated other people the way they want to be treated. The folks who came before them in a courtroom received fair treatment, equal treatment. I wanted to nominate people who worked hard. I always sought to nominate people who had good judgment. I sought to nominate people who were able to make a decision. Sometimes people can have a lot of those qualities, but they just have a hard time making a decision. I didn't want to do that. I want to have people who could do all those things. And my hope is this president will look at Democrats, Republicans, and independents and find among them the man or woman who just meets all that criteria and more. That's the president's job. I was up at the Detroit Auto Show, Mr. President. I don't know if you've been there. You have a lot of auto assembly and operations and supply operations in your state. But I go to the Detroit Auto Show. I've been going for a long time. Delaware used to until fairly recently. We built more cars, trucks, vans per capita than any other state. So I cared a lot about who was running GM and who was running Chrysler. We lost both plants a few years ago when they went into bankruptcy. But I still go back to the Detroit Auto Show, not every year, but most years, and to keep in touch with the industry. This last January, a month ago, I was in Detroit. It was the opening day of the Detroit Auto Show. Tens of thousands of people converging on the auto show. Just a ton of people. Mass of humanity going this way and that way to see the different reveals of the different vehicles that are being concept cars or new production vehicles that are going to be launched maybe later this year. And during the afternoon, early afternoon, I'm looking for a restroom. I find one, and so did hundreds of other people in and out of this one restroom. And I noticed there was an older gentleman who was a custodian, standing with his cart and his mop and his bucket and his broom outside of the massive humanity. And I walked in, and I noticed, God, in spite of all those people, the place was remarkably clean. And when I came out, I said to the janitor, I figured he was the janitor who had responsibility for this restroom. And I said to him, I just want to say, sir, that this is a really clean restroom. And given all the kind of people you've got that are coming in here and out of here, I don't know how you do it. I just want to say thank you for doing your job really well. And he said to me, looked at me right in my eye, and he said, that's my job. He said, this is my job. And he said, I try to do my job well. He said, everybody has a job. Everybody has a job. And everybody should try to do their job well. I thought to myself, wow, what insight, what a message. And under the Constitution, the president has a job. And apparently he's moving not with haste, but I think with dispatch to trying to meet his responsibilities. I don't know that we've ever, I know we've had any number of times when presidents have nominated Supreme Court justices in an election year, a presidential election year. I know like a dozen or more times it's happened. And I think every single time that nominee we had hearings for that nominee. There's been the opportunity to debate the nominee, question the nominee, meet with the nominee, and debate here on the floor and vote on the nomination, up or down. I don't know of any time we've not done that, even when a nominee comes to us during a presidential election year. And I know we're in this crazy election season. It's still like 8 months, 9 months before the election. But I hope at the end of the day, just like that janitor at the Detroit Auto Show, intent on doing his job, feeling that the rest of us have a job to do and we should be intent on doing our job. I think we do. We have that need. We have the responsibility. I hope we'll fulfill it. The other thing I want to say is baseball. My colleague who's presiding over us now, when he was a House member and we were House members together, we used to play baseball. We played in the congressional baseball game. I think maybe 10 years or so together. Me on the Democratic side, him on the Republican side. A year, 1 or 2 years, I was almost selected as the most valuable Republican player. I'm a Democrat, so I wasn't always a great player, but I gave it my best. But I was just down for an event over the weekend in Florida, and last week, something wonderful happened in Florida and in Arizona. And what happened was spring training camps opened. Pitchers and catchers had reported, and then the full teams started to report. And when they start the spring training games in a day or two, I think maybe tomorrow, when the teams take the field, they will take the fields with 9 players out on the field. 9 players out on the field. When Justice Roberts was going through the confirmation hearing, he said, I think before the Judiciary Committee, they asked him, he said, what is the job of the Supreme Court? How would you describe it in a simple way? He said, our job basically is to call balls and strikes. That's what he said. Our job is to call balls and strikes. Well, baseball teams, when they take the field, they've got 9 players, 9 positions. When the Supreme Court is in Banker, when they're in session, they've got 9 justices, or at least they did until the death of Justice Scalia. They, just like you can't have a baseball team take the field without the shortstop, or without the catcher, or even without the second baseman or the center field, you can't have them take the field and play well, and do their job, and do their job. At the end of the day, the Supreme Court is a team. They need 9, not players, but 9 justices to be able to do their jobs well. And let's keep that in mind. Last thing I would say is this. The American people are frustrated with us and our inability to get things done. Sometimes I can understand why they would feel that way. We have a great opportunity here to get something done. And I hope the president will nominate a terrific candidate. I hope our Republican friends will at least have the courtesy of meeting with that man or woman, give him or her a chance to present themselves, explain what they're about, have a hearing on that person, and then give them at least the honor of a vote. I think they deserve that.